What's up, guys? Dylan Rush here, joined today by a UFC welterweight boasting a 27-9 professional record. He holds the record for most welterweight victories in UFC history with 20, set to take on Gilbert Burns at UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Fighting out of Arvada, Colorado by way of Brooklyn, New York, Neil, the Haitian sensation. Magni, how you doing, Neil?
Good man, real good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Uh, You're coming off a very impressive victory, a third round Darce choke over a game opponent, Daniel Rodriguez. You secured fight of the night or performance of the night honors. Now you find yourself going into hostile territory. Have you been in this situation before, going into a country where maybe your opponent is from there? And what do you feel about that? Maybe getting booed and playing the role of spoiler.
Man, I feel excited. Like this is my fourth time going to Brazil in particular. So going to Brazil at this point for me is not hostile territory at all. I mean, I had a great time every single time I've been to Brazil. Put on great fights while I was down there. So going down there this fourth time, I see it being no different. I mean, in addition to going down to Brazil, I fought literally all over the world. I fought New Zealand, Australia, Mexico, Canada, Argentina, literally you name the country, I probably fought there. So for me, taking this fight against Gilbert Burns in his backyard in his home territory is no obstacle for me at all.
And you called out Gilbert a lot. You wanted this fight. What excites you about this matchup in particular? Why did you want to fight Gilbert Burns?
If I'm being honest, it's the skill sets he brings to the table. I know he's a very skilled grappler. And in the past I've struggled with grapplers in the past in my fights. So for me to go out there and put in the work that I've been putting in, I want to prove to myself that you know what, you've actually gotten better in this department. Go out there and prove it by testing yourself against one of the better guys that at that particular skill sets. And that's one of the things that really drew Gilbert Burns to my attention. And the other part of that is just like I'm not going to lie or pretend it's something more or less than it is. It's the rankings. It's the number five slot that I'm trying to take from him. So that's a huge motivational factor for me as well.
And are you at number 12 right now?
12, 11, 10, whatever it is.
Like that.
But I'm definitely hunting that top five spot. So here we are.
So you're winner of three of your last four, defeating three killers: Jeff Neal, Max Payne Griffin, Daniel Rodriguez. You're 6-2 since 2020. Was there any changes you made before this current run that you're on during the pandemic or during that time off that helped you excel and go on this 6-2 run?
One of the biggest shifts of focus for me was just kind of prioritizing how I'm training. Like I'm a guy who's constantly in the gym. I'm constantly doing a bunch of busy work where I'm training 5, 6 hours a day, or whatever. But like these last couple of fights, last couple of years, I really had to focus in on to like doing more like a specific training for specific skill sets and opponents where rather than just being like, all right, whatever, I'm gonna train to fight anyone at every given moment. I have to really kind of dial in and focus on like, all right, what is it that my opponent does well? And what skill sets I need to bring to the table in order to defeat that opponent. So rather than just doing a bunch of busy work, I've been really, really focused on doing a lot of intentional work these past few training camps.
And did anything set in for you when you achieved the welterweight wins record in your last fight? Were you ever like, was there a moment where you're like, damn, look where I started, look where I'm at now. I have the most wins in my division in UFC history.
So yeah, it was kind of a split reaction when it came to that. Like at one point of it, I'm like, I'm super fortunate and grateful to where I'm at now. I mean, started my UFC career at 1-2, and not sure I was even making past that first year or whatever, to being where I'm at now, 10 years later, being the most was my division, that kind of thing, still fighting at the top of my division, is definitely a humbling experience that I'm grateful for. But the other part about it was like, as excited as I was to get that kind of notch or that token on my belt, so to speak, I also had to dismiss it and not feel like content with it. Like it was great to get those 20 wins, but at 20 wins, my career is far from over. I still have many great things to go out there and accomplish. So it was like this weird feeling of like, okay, cool, good job, Neil, but it's not over yet. Going to get back to work. So I had to like let that experience be short lived and not allow me to become complacent because of it.
Makes sense. Good mentality, of course. This is a similar question, but when you hear that you've spent 6 hours of your life in that octagon, 6 hours of octagon time, what do you feel like? Does it feel like a lot? Does it feel like a little? Does it feel like it's 6 hours?
To be honest with you, I literally had this conversation earlier today. I had a friend who has a daughter who recently started wrestling. And she just hasn't been doing too well with it. And I was literally giving the analogy like, dude, at the end of the day, how long is a wrestling season? Like what, 12 weeks maybe? And of those 12 weeks, how much time are you actually spending in the training room? How many time are you spending on the mat? How much time are you spending actually with your peers or whatever else? The thing that's more important than like the time spent in the cage, the time spent doing a particular sport, is the journey that you've been on. I mean, I've been to literally over 20 different countries because of mixed martial arts. I've made literally friends on every continent because of mixed martial arts. I've got some crazy experiences with training partners and coaches because of mixed martial arts. So for me, like I do appreciate the 6 hours of cage time, but the hours of memories that I've created outside of the cage because of mixed martial arts, so that I hope close to my heart as well.
Course. Uh, you're also tied for the most wins in a calendar year, 5 victories in 2014. Kevin Holland just tied you, I think, in 2020. Most decisions wins in UFC history. But all these records, you have all these records. I'm sorry, I'm naming so many. I won't name any more. All these records, and I still see your name come up when people make lists on Instagram, content creators, whatever. I see these lists, most underrated fighters, most underappreciated fighters. I see your name on those lists. Do you feel like you get the respect and praise that you deserve for all the things you've accomplished?
At the end of the day, the respect and praise thing, like it's one of those things. Like I'd be lying if I said, like, man, I would love to have a million Instagram followers. I'd be lying if I said I would have loved to be like the top conversation on every TV show. Like you do appreciate those accolades. You do appreciate those moments where you get some recognition. But at the end of the day, like you know what? If someone feels as if I'm underrated or whatever else, I can't let that where I'm going. Like I've done some great things over the last 10 years. And if someone can't appreciate it or accept that, that's not up to me. You know what I mean? Like I know what I've done over the last 10 years. I appreciate how I've come over the last 10 years. And so much more than fighting, I appreciate what the opportunities that MMA has allowed for myself, my family, and the people that are around me. So, though at times I do crave that extra attention, I'm grateful for all the other things and all the other doors that have opened for me because of mixed martial arts and the work that I've done over the last 10 years.
And I always ask my first question of every interview is always about nicknames. I'm crazy I haven't asked you yet. It's pretty self-explanatory, but who gave you the Haitian sensation nickname? How did that come about?
To be honest, that was a name that Robbie Lawler kicked around back in college. But I never
Really?
really, yeah, I never took to it. I never was just like, yeah, I'm gonna use a nickname. I just never. It was kind of like I don't know, like I, I was never a fan of like nicknames. It's never something I wanted to do. But more recently, I was going on mission trips to Haiti, and I realized that like a lot of these younger kids or whatever would gravitate towards me when they realize like, oh wait, you're Haitian as well. That's so cool. Like, how can someone who from our country be in the U.S. doing all these crazy things or whatever? That's a amazing opportunity. So for me, now accepting the fact that I have a nickname is so much more than just being a nickname. It's an opportunity for a kid in the middle of Haiti somewhere to see, oh wow, look, guy on TV representing Haiti. If he can get that far, there's no reason why I can't like pursue my dreams or have big aspirations or goals for myself. So a motivational thing for me to use the Haitian sensation nickname more than anything. So like how cliche it may be, how cheesy it may be, and the other stuff, it's out the window. For me, it's more so instead of hoping that a young person who sees an opportunity he can go for it. So regardless of where you're born, where you're from, what resources you have, you can have these goals and aspirations for yourself and go out there and reach them.
That's great, bro. That's great. You have a lot of people have dumbass nicknames that don't mean anything. So that's awesome that you have. So I'm in Manhattan right now. I'm born and raised in Manhattan. My parents are from Brooklyn, so I gotta ask you. I read that you were raised in Brooklyn until you were 12. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in Brooklyn from I was born to about 12, 13 or so. Pretty much bounced around all over Brooklyn. Lived in Bushwick, Canarsie, Flatbush, like literally all over Brooklyn. I bounced around everywhere.
Yeah, my parents are from Bushwick. You have fond memories of it? Do you ever come back or?
Yeah, yeah, I go to New York at least 3, 4 times a year. And it's just crazy because like there's things that are like very specific to New York, like the idea of sitting outside in the stoop all day long, just watching your friends
Yes.
play whatever, or cracking open a fire hydrant on a hot day to play in the water, or playing with a basketball hoop in the middle of the street and having to move out when the cars coming. It's just like all these things that are like very specific to like growing up in a big city like New York that like in other cities you just don't get that experience. Like my son plays basketball in a driveway or in their house. Like there's like a very specific thing about growing up in New York, Brooklyn in particular, that's just like special for that. I mean, even the other day I was on the East Coast and just like I'm gonna run to the corner store real quick. It's just like the small thing that you appreciate when you're back there, or it's just not a norm when you're outside of a big city.
Yep. It's so funny you mentioned Stoops because I'm currently a student. I'm a senior at Arizona State, and when I came to Arizona the first time, I'm 17. I don't know anybody. And they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I usually just hang out on Stoops every now and then." They didn't even know what the word stoop meant. They never heard of a stoop. I was like, "What the hell?" I thought I was in like a different, like I don't know, world. That was crazy.
It was versus a porch or something weird.
Yeah,
It's like, no, it's a
yeah.
stoop, bro. Like,
What position did you play in football?
I played tight end and defensive end when I played football in high school.
I read that you played in high school and college, or just high school.
Just high school.
And did you
Yeah, I
go? You
found out
said
very quick. What was that? Good.
no. You found a very quick one that you weren't gonna make.
Uh, No, well, I just wasn't built for college football. And like I've been competing at 170 pounds since I was a freshman in high school. And the very first time I walked to a football program in high school, I realized that tight ends and defensive ends were walking around like 260, 250 pounds. It was like, yeah, there's no way. I can't even get above 200 pounds. I'm not gonna be able to be 200 plus, like playing these positions or whatever.
Well, you've done well for yourself outside of football, so that's good. So I had no idea you went to college with Robbie Lawler. Is that what you just said, or you just knew him in college?
So when I went to college, I went to school called Southern Illinois University, and it was right outside of St. Louis. And around that same time, Matt Hughes, Bobby Lawler, and Mark Fiore opened up a MMA gym that was called Hit Squad, and that was literally about 10 miles away from where I went to school. So my first year in college, I went out there. I was wrestling, but my heart just kind of wasn't into it anymore at that point. I was like, I really would rather focus on fighting at this point. Like I don't see the point of me having this 4 year wrestling career just to turn around and then focus on MMA in general. I'd rather just start MMA now. So my freshman year of college, that gym opened up down by where I was going to school at. I just kind of walked over or drove over and got started there training with those guys.
So that was how you got into it initially, was in college. That's when you started training.
My senior year of high school, when I first started training, I started training in 2005, size 2006. That summer of my junior year, going to my senior year, Miguel Torres was actually running a martial arts program out of a World's Gym. Excuse me. He was running a martial arts program out of World's Gym, and that summer, my football coach got us hooked up to go lift weights there, and I kind of just like was seeing Miguel and the other guys kind of in the gym doing kickboxing, jujitsu, and all this other stuff. And I was like, man, that looks pretty interesting. I want to kind of check it out. And finally, at the end of the summer, I was like, all right, screw it, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go out there and check it out. So I walked up, introduced myself, asked what they were doing, asked how I can like take part of whatever. And he gave me an opportunity to go out there and train, and that's like when I first started, and kind of just kept with it ever since.
That's great. This is so weird. The person I spoke to right before you was Brandon Royval. Both of you guys in Colorado. He spoke a bunch about Miguel Torres, who I never spoke to anyone about Miguel Torres. Now both of you, and he also said he always hated nicknames growing up and never wanted one. But then he got his nickname, and he was like, "All right, screw it, I'll run with it."
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I'm running with it.
so I read that you got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Do you have any intention of maybe using that to some degree in maybe after your fighting career?
For a while, I always thought that like I just never knew how long a fight career was going to be. So it was always like in the back of my mind that I would want to get back to law enforcement or whatever. But at this point in my life, with all, everything going on, like I think it may be a possibility still that I work in law enforcement in some capacity. Exactly what it will be, I have no idea yet. Like, would I necessarily be a patrol officer or a detective or anything like that? Probably not at like retiring at 40 from MMA or whatever I retire at. Probably won't be the case, but I'm not against it. I mean, I'm not against being a 40-year-old rookie going out there being a patrol officer. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Your brother's in the Chicago PD, right?
yeah, I have two brothers that are Chicago police officers currently.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So if you ever
Yeah,
go
so it's
back there,
definitely.
if you ever go back there, you got to in right there in the
Yeah,
Chicago.
yeah. I mean, I just love it. Like I remember having conversations around policing, and like, and I was only like 17 years old at the time. Like I couldn't be a police officer now. Like, I made up my mind like that young that like law enforcement was a career path that I was going to jump into. And like I said, it's something that's not completely off the table. It's more so to see how life plays out this couple years.
Yeah, makes sense. And I read you were an Army veteran and you were deployed in Kuwait. When was that? When did that fit into? Because you were on Ultimate. I read that you left the service in 2013, but you were on the Ultimate Fighter in 2012. So what is the timing? Like, I really get it.
Yeah, so unfortunately during that time I was reserves or National Guard, same difference. I was kind of on the reserve status where I have to do my 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year type thing. And it was just a pretty cool window of opportunity where the Ultimate Fighter presented itself, where it's like, all right, I got to be gone for 7 weeks, means I have to miss a drill session or two in order to make it happen. And it was just fortunate enough where I was able to make up my time served ahead of time, where I can get that time off, where I wouldn't have to necessarily worry about having sport duty, so to speak, while I was filming for the Ultimate Fighter. But then I literally got done filming for Ultimate Fighter, flew home, and was right back in uniform a couple days later, like nothing had happened. And I've had several instances in my throughout my career where that was the case, where I was at a drill weekend or I had military service to do, but I also had a fight scheduled and I had to like literally make both things happen. I can remember one time I had a drill weekend for my military service where it was in the Chicagoland area, but I had a fight scheduled in Wisconsin, and it was probably about a 2 hour drive or so. And my drill weekend was supposed to be from Friday through Sunday, and I remember driving. I remember going to drill, doing what I had to do there, and I had to cut weight ahead of time. So I cut weight that morning, went to drill, did what I had to do a drill, and then I drove myself to Wisconsin, weighed in, and then drove back that same night so I could be in drill the next morning. That morning, same kind of thing. I do what I have to do. I drill all day. And then as soon as they release me, I drive back to Wisconsin and fight, win the fight, and I'm right back in formation next day like nothing had happened. And I had to do that on several occasions where it's like it's a drill weekend, but I also have a big opportunity, a big fight, and I can't pass this up. So I just went out there and did what I had to do to get it done.
That might be the coolest thing I've ever heard, bro. Weighed in Friday, you did your drill Friday, you drove to Wisconsin, drove back there, back. That's crazy, bro. And your wrist,
Yeah,
what if you got like, what if you lost and you got like your face marked up and stuff? Like,
and that was the risk I had to take. But it's and it's a cool thing about a mindset. Like, and it's crazy how important that may be. Like sometimes you hear somebody say like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna try to get this thing done or whatever," and you hear somebody else say, "Oh no, I'm gonna go out there and do this. Or I'm gonna go out there and get this done." And those are two very different mindsets. And for me, when I had a drill weekend, I had formation next day. I didn't have an option of showing up to drill broken or marked up or the black eye or busted lip. Like I have to show up in formation in uniform, dressed properly, ready to go. So when I went out there and fought the night before, winning my fight and getting it done effectively, where I didn't take any damage or there was no signs that I've been in a fight the night before, was the only option that I've had. So like that was my mindset driving to Wisconsin the whole time. Like, all right, cool, I'm on a mission. I'm going to go out there and get it done. I'm going to go out there and beat this guy, and I'll be right back here tomorrow morning, ready to go in formation at 4 o'clock in the morning. And sure enough, I got it done every single time. I put that pressure on myself.
that is incredible. And I love what you just said. It's a big difference in mentality saying, I'm going to try to be somewhere. I was just saying to Brendan Royval, like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to make it to Demetrius Johnson, Adriano Moraes in Colorado, but I'm going to make it. I told him I'm going to stay there. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know where I'm going to get the money, but I will be there.
For sure.
What about you? You think maybe you'll make the trip out there? I don't know what city, but it's right outside Denver, Brendan Royval said.
Yeah, if it's in Colorado, I'll definitely be there. Like, if it's coming to Denver, it'll be the Pepsi Center or the First Bank Center, most likely. Both places are like 15, 20 minutes from my house. So I'll definitely be there.
Brendan Royval said his dream venue is the Pepsi Center. Would you agree with him, or is there somewhere else you have in mind?
No, for me, it's Madison Square Garden in the United Center. It's just more so from how I grew up. I mean, as a kid, I've never even thought twice of being like, you know what I mean? I've never been to a Knicks game. Like I drove past, I walked past the Madison Square Garden all the time as a kid, but I never actually was able to afford to actually go in there and watch the Knicks game. Never got to go in there and watch a boxing match. Never got to go in there and do any of those things. So to be at this point in my career now and actually get to compete in Madison Square Garden, that'd be like a dream destination for me to fight at.
Yep. I've lived here my whole life. I've never gone to a Nick game either. I went to WWE once. Knicks, because they're always the Knicks are bad and they're the most expensive tickets in the league. It's like I'm
Yeah, yeah.
not gonna pay lose by 50, bro. Like I was gonna ask you about your tough days. Would you recommend like how often do you reminisce or reflect on your tough experience? And would you recommend that experience to a young fighter looking to make a name for themselves?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest thing about the tough thing is like you find out early on that your job is not to go out there and like compare yourself to a different person, but it's to stand out amongst your peers. Like the only people who get contracts from the Ultimate Fighter are people who stand out amongst their peers. The only people who like make it in the sport year after year and year are the guys that stand out amongst their peers. So it's real difficult for a lot of fighters a lot of times to like look at a guy like Conor McGregor and set the bar so high, like, oh, I'm gonna go out there and redo what Conor McGregor did. Like, yeah, there's a reason why there's one Conor McGregor and like 1,000 impersonations of him. Like, you know what I mean? But like the biggest goal and the most success you have in the sport is to constantly focus on standing out amongst your peers. Like you go out there and do your best amongst your peers, you can be the standout person every single time, or whatever. And me, going from the Ultimate Fighter to the UFC, that was my experience. Like if I were to rate myself, my class, so to speak, of the Ultimate Fighter season 16 to see who was the best that came out of that class, it would have to be myself. Like, you know what I mean? I definitely stood out amongst my peers that I went on that show. Out of it started with 32 contestants, all the way down to 4 guys who initially were awarded contracts from the Ultimate Fighter to the UFC, to now being, I think there's like 2 of us left in the UFC that are competing actively. And I've beaten him as well. So it's like at this point, I've definitely.
Who's the other guy?
It was Max Griffin.
Oh yeah, you just
he's
fought him. Yeah,
he's the last person from my Ultimate Fighter class, so to speak, who is still in the UFC currently.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know that. All right, I just ask you about a couple people you train with, and then a little speed round, and then the last question, I'm gonna let you go. All right.
Cool.
You're a busy man. All right, I gotta ask you about someone that I feel like I'm probably closer to this fighter than most others. I've interviewed him like 3 times. We talk all the time. Mr. Archie Colgan. What can you tell me about him? Have you trained with him before? What can you say about Archie Colgan?
Yeah. Archie's great, man. He's definitely a young fighter. Unfortunately, we get to spar pretty often. We don't get to trick him on a daily basis. But the guy's a grinder, man. He comes in, he shows up to work, and he just kind of. He's one of those guys that like there's no BS with Archie. You know exactly what you're gonna get. Like he's not gonna come in do anything flashy. He's kind of one of those guys that puts his head down and gets right to work, so to speak. And the result speaks for himself in this case. I mean, you see the run he's on now in Bellator, and he's still undefeated, and there's a reason why. His work ethic speaks for itself.
And then what about Austin Hubbard? I'm pretty sure he fought recently, no?
Yeah, his last 2 fights, I was able to corner him for both, and it was a very emotional in his last fight, and I was very fortunate to be there for him. But he's another guy who I got pretty close with over the years. So I got to see him kind of like take a chance. I remember he came out to Colorado to visit one year, and he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about moving here." And at this point, I heard 1,000 fighters say this before. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. You're thinking about moving here. Yeah, whatever. If you need a place to stay, I have an extra room in my house. You can stay there. The rent beach pretty cheap. You can do whatever. And I remember being in Japan and getting a call from Austin. He's like, hey, is that room still available at your house? I was like, yeah, why? Like, well, I just quit my job or I got a transfer. I'm coming to Denver to train full time. And at this time, I'm just like, oh yeah, sure, of course, to come to Denver. Here we are again, having this whole like spiel of a fighter who's making it happen. He's chasing his dreams, moving across town, and I didn't believe it. And then like while I'm in Japan, he's like, "Hey man, I just pulled up in front of your house in my U-Haul. How do I get in?" I was like, "Oh shit, you actually did it. You actually transferred yourself and came to Colorado to pursue this thing full time. Holy crap, you're here." So I got him in the house. We got him situated, and it was no looking back ever since. And then the guy literally like set high goals himself and accomplished everything. Whether it was getting to the UFC, becoming an LFA world champion, all these other things, he went out there and did all those things. They accomplished for himself, and it was a guy who I can really say I was proud of from the first day that I met him to now. I'm very proud of the man he's become, the work he's put in.
Definitely. And then last but not least, I want to ask you about Curtis Blaydes. Who, I know there are people paid to matchmaker. You're not a matchmaker, but who do you see him fighting next? There's so many heavyweights at the top right now. I'm so excited to see how it plays out. But do you have anyone that you think he might fight next?
Dude, that's like $1 million question right now. Like between uh the whole John Jones and
Stipe.
Ngannou situation right now.
Honor,
And
yeah.
then even Stipe being a factor. Like even Stipe is like, oh wait, I'm not quite retired yet. Keep me in the picture.
Mhm.
That's even like in the UFC's back pocket. So I would think just based off of um availability and how prepared the two guys are, I would lean more towards John Jones versus Curtis for an interim title fight more than anything. Just because like Ngannou, I know he said he's coming back in March and that kind of thing, but we're already in December and he's not cleared to train 100% yet. And if for him to fight John Jones at the year layoff after having major knee reconstruction surgery, it's a pretty risky move. And I think it'll be more in his best interest to like give himself a little more time or whatever. And if I'm saying this, I can imagine his managers and coaches are saying the same. But I feel like where Curtis and John Jones are right now, they're both super eager to go out there and fight somebody. So I think the interim title between the two of them makes the most sense, and it's probably the highest likelihood to happen, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. Actually, I thought you were going to say that. But the heavyweight division, I mean, we didn't even mention Cyril Gahn, Sergey Pavlovich, Tai Tuivasa. Like that's an exciting division right now.
Uh,
I could see
yeah,
someone else being champion by the end of next year.
for sure. And like you know, Sergey Gonzalez is another one. Like he in one interview he says like, "Hey, I refuse to fight Curtis Blades. There's no way I'm doing it." And now you start saying Curtis Blades, all right, fine. Curtis is next for a title. And they're like, "Oh wait. I'll fight Curtis any day of the week." No, you won't. You said you won't. Like you clearly said in the interview that Curtis is the one man you would not fight. All of a sudden you're game to fight Curtis tomorrow. Like I I don't buy it.
Mhm. Okay. I was gonna ask you about. I mean, actually, I guess I'll ask it since I started talking already. I shouldn't have asked this, but because you're fully focused on the match of the head. But because you mentioned that one of the reasons you want Gilbert is the ranking, but also because he's a grappler, you want to test yourself. You've called out Hamzat a million times, maybe a billion. I don't know, maybe
Nah.
a billion by now. Is that a fight you see yourself having maybe next year?
Realistically, no. I don't think that guy goes back down to 170. Based off his last weight cut, and I threw some an opportunity to train with him in New York recently. And seeing how big he was and everything else like that, I highly doubt he returns to 170 pounds.
Mhm.
If I'm being honest, but who knows? If he does, and if that's a fight that's available, I'm 100% game for it. But to look him go back down to 170, I just don't see it.
Do bodies just change like really fast or something though? Because I feel like he fought like twice in 2, 3 weeks back then, and then like 3 times in like 2 months. He was at 170 the whole time. Like what happened where like now it's an
Yeah. Well, one was 185, one was 170, and then the
oh
other
yeah.
part is just like it's just the time in between fights and the weight that the guys are doing. Like I remember like we were talking earlier today, your early starts or whatever. There were times when I was fighting and I told myself that I can eat healthy off of McDonald's dollar menu. That's all I was able to afford to eat. So like I can only imagine like, all right, now you have access to like supplements and like nutrition and things like that, and you're eating and trying to get your body performing its best. Like losing weight or losing 30 pounds to go out there and fight, that's not ideal for anyone. So if you walk around 200 pounds plus, and now you're getting the right supplements, the right foods in you, the right everything else in you, you're actually going to put on a lot more muscle quickly than you are going to, or then you're going to lose weight or whatever. And I think in his case, it's more of a thing of him like between his age and his like this naturally how big he is. I think it's more so like that's more of a natural way for him to be around 200 plus than for him to be trying to walk around at 185 or so and then cut from there. But who knows? Like I said, I mean, I've seen crazier things happen. But see how it plays out.
Yep. All right, I just got a little speed round for you. I think it's like 4 or 5 questions. I already asked you the venue, so like 5 questions, and then my last question. Then I'm gonna let you go real quick. All right, speed round. MMA goat.
Uh, John Jones and GSP.
Okay. Favorite fighter growing up. Who influenced you the most?
Matt Hughes, Miguel Torres.
Okay. Rivas said Miguel Torres too. That's crazy. The two back to back. Favorite submission to practice.
Probably the dark stroke.
Okay, another thing, real quick. Everyone says that. I personally, I'm not that experienced in jujitsu. What is so funny about the dark stroke? Everyone says that. Everybody asks.
That's weird. I mean, I think there's a commonality with the build of the guys you mentioned. Like you mentioned, Brandon Roval and the fact that he's a guy that like followed Miguel Torres. Like, I mean, you watch Miguel Torres build, you watch Brandon Roval's build, you have my build. Like, it's the same like tall, lanky, built or whatever. And I feel like that's a choke that's just kind of catered for that body type. Like where you try doing Darce Anacondas, Armin guillotines, it's just like an easy transition between the three chokes.
You showed that last fight. All right. Favorite musician?
Man, this would be awkward if probably no one ever knows. Busy Bone.
Oh no. Is that a band or is that a singer or rapper?
No, so there was he's a rapper, but there was a group called Bone Thugs and Harmony that was around like the
Yeah,
early '90s or so. Most of them split up to their own groups or whatever else, and Busy Bone was one of the members in the group.
I'll check that out. I've heard of Bone Thugs. Uh, favorite fight of yours? That's the last one.
The Hector Lombard fight. That was probably one
Yeah,
of the most favorite fights of mine. Yeah.
that's cool. All right, this is the last thing. I finish every interview with this question. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. When it's all said and done, fighting, training, maybe policing, whatever it may be, what do you want people to remember most about Neil, the Haitian sensation Magny?
When it's all said and done, like I want my kids to remember most like, man, dad sacrificed a lot for us and had a great life, and because of his sacrifices, we're gonna have great lives. So like, when it's all said and done, I can't give my son my gold UFC belt. I'm like, hey, here, go like start your life with this. But like because of the work that I put in throughout the years and investments I made, that kind of thing, I can actually have something tangible to give it to my children when my fighting career, law enforcement career, military career is all over with. I'll have something tangible to give my kids where they can kind of start life a step ahead than I did. And for me, that's the most important thing at this point in my life.
That is a great answer, man. I really appreciate it. I think I told you this was gonna be 10 minutes. I think it's been 40. So thank you for taking
No, it's all good, man. I'm just glad I was able to make it. I thought I was gonna cut it close to the timing, but it worked out great.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. And good luck in January. I will be watching, of course, and I hope to interview you again one day soon, man.
All right, no problem. Have a good one.
Be good.